Frank, I want to start with the facts about coronavirus and where we are right now, because this is the question I get asked more than anything about the president and his miracle, even though that would probably be nice. Talk to me about what the warning today from the World Health Organization adds to our understanding about how global health agencies are approaching the risk today.
So I think that we need to listen to these professionals like those at the World Health Organization, because right now, everything we know about the tenets of crisis management is being ignored by the White House. Here's what I mean. I was involved as an on-scene commander at the first anthrax murder in our nation's history at Boca Raton, Florida. I can assure you that while I might have been the on-scene commander, we didn't make a move without medical doctors and PhD microbiologists directing everything. And so when you have to deal in trust and calm the American people and calm Wall Street, that what they're doing wrong is they've made the single communicator Vice President Pence, who allegedly is controlling all the messaging. What we need to see are medical and scientific professionals that we can trust. They can turn this thing around if they listen to the professionals and if they present to the public somebody with an MD or PhD after their name. So we have to understand honesty and transparency. If you don't have testing kits understood yet, if they aren't out there yet, tell us about it. You'll see the market recover. It came up toward the end of the day because we heard something about testing kits. If we don't know what happened to the California patient and how she got it, be completely honest and transparent. But don't hide the fact that she's just miles away from the Air Force base or the military base where we took in American citizens from the cruise ship. Explain that. Don't hide it.
You know, Heidi Przybyla, it's a great point. I actually only know Dr. Fauci because when I worked in the White House in the press office, we didn't take these calls. We didn't take these questions. We sent them all over to him. So it is really to any White House, a Democratic president or a Republican president benefits from having medical professionals out front. They also spare themselves from biting critiques like this one from Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer today says it appears President Trump and his administration have learned nothing from the Chinese government's failure to quickly and transparently combat the coronavirus. Hiding the truth about the coronavirus and the government's response only increases the likelihood of the virus spreading. Now, Heidi, we don't know if and what they're hiding, but they certainly have a perception problem. And this whistleblower complaint that we first learned about during this hour yesterday, the warnings against retaliation against the HHS whistleblower, it appears it's an HHS whistleblower, seem to be coming in that large shadow cast over the impeachment purge.
Nicole, this is where draining the swamp becomes incredibly dangerous for the American people, because in addition to all of the things that you mentioned, we know that President Trump also ended that global health security unit within the White House that was in effect both during the Obama and Bush administrations, knowing that all of the health experts have told us that it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when a global virus like this would pose such a grave threat globally as well as here in the United States. So what they are doing now is scrambling to try and recreate that. And, you know, the CDC funding that was proposed never did get slashed. So that's probably not fair to criticize them on that. But to criticize them on not having a command and control center on this that existed under two previous administrations is a fair criticism. To say that they are not putting forward folks like Mr. Fauci, who should be the frontward face and the person who's taking the questions, who is the medical expert on this, is a concern if he really was blocked from the shows. So to Frank's point, the transparency issue now is critical, given that now that, you know, all these testing kits are going to be distributed, we aren't even sure of how long it's going to take to know how much this has spread, given the incubation periods, that the government needs to be honest with us, not looking like they're trying to, you know, cover up something that was maybe a public relations problem for them in the beginning, that they didn't have this unit together and they didn't have a real plan for communicating with some of these localities.
You know, Jonathan Lemire, let me just say something that Congressman Swalwell said on this show. He's rooting for the president, but for the president to turn over control around the messaging to the experts would require the president to break a now years-long pattern of trusting his own brain and his own gut, even when it comes to military advice from generals, when it comes to scientists. I pulled some of that sound. It's startling to listen to. Let's watch and talk about it on the other side.
I'm speaking with myself, number one, because I have a very good brain and I've said a lot of things.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do.
When my intelligence people tell me how wonderful Iran is, if you don't mind, I'm going to just go by my own counsel.
Nobody knows the system better than me, which is why I alone can fix it.
He doesn't like expertise. He doesn't trust experts in the intelligence community, in the military, in foreign policy, in Iran. I guess we're all hoping he trusts his health experts. He didn't agree with Anthony Fauci at that press conference on the vaccine.
No, and the White House and the CDC have contradicted each other a number of times. And I think most people would side with the CDC for being right when it comes to this. What this administration should be doing is having daily updates from a professional, someone who can be transparent, sober, who knows the facts, who can brief the American people and tell them exactly what's going on, to sort of calm these fears that are rapidly growing and enhanced by the fact the stock market continues to plunge. What we're seeing instead is the opposite. Mick Mulvaney today at CPAC, a gathering of conservatives.
What was he even doing at CPAC? This is the right-wing sort of circles, you know, Festivus. I mean, why was he there? Why weren't they in the PIOC figuring out how to protect the public from a global health pandemic?
Well, the president will be there tomorrow.
At CPAC?
At CPAC. He's giving a speech tomorrow there. This is a highlight of his year, the president, in fact, has said. He was not going to cancel. There's no indication that he will. When Mulvaney did speak, he blamed the media. He suggested that the media did not cover the administration's early efforts to combat this, which was to closing foreign nationals who had been from China, to not allow them into the country, because, as he put it, we were too busy covering impeachment, that we were focused on the political witch hunt rather than the good things the administration were doing. And he says we're only hearing about it now because impeachment is over, and this is the new way the media is trying to, quote, get the president. I'll go one step further. Don Jr., the president's eldest son, spoke on Fox and Friends today and said this, quote, about Democrats. For them to try to take a pandemic and seemingly hope that it comes here and kills millions of people so they can end Donald Trump's streak of winning is a new level of sickness. So he is suggesting...
Who's the single individual? Who's the single example of anyone hoping it comes here?
There have been none. And in fact, a number of Democrats have denounced this statement and called for Donald Trump Jr. to apologize for suggesting the Democrats want Americans to die for some sort of political point. So that's what we're seeing right now, though, is the administration today is doing two things. Instead of being transparent, instead of providing these updates, they are both downplaying the crisis. You heard Mulvaney say that Americans should turn off their TVs for 24 hours, which, of course, is not what you want to do when you're trying to receive information about a growing health threat, and they're trying to scapegoat others. And we're seeing both Mulvaney, in particular Trump Jr., blame the media and Democrats for what's going on.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.